let's go ahead and get started, and I'll introduce our moderator for today is Christy Kluwer with Community Education Inclusion Educator at Abilities First. Thanks, Christy. And then our panelist today is Nancy Bogart she's the founder of Jordan Essentials. State Representative Melanie Stinnett. Did I say it right? Nice. She represents the District 133 and also works with the Arc of the Ozarks. And then on the final end down there is Scott Kirby representing the Down Syndrome Group of the Ozarks. So I am going to pass this off to Christy. Hand a microphone over.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 60 Minutes to Success Beyond Compliance, Leading the Way to Disability Hiring. Like she had said, I am Christine Kluwer, and I work at Abilities First. I am the inclusion educator there. And so for me, my job is amazing because I get to go out into the community and educate people on inclusion and what that exactly means. And our main goal there is basically getting everyone to the table so that everyone can make decisions about their own lives. That whole lived experience is amazing on what it can add to things. So I am honored to be here today and to moderate this and for today's discussion. So I thought that we would start out with Nancy Bogart. So as with many individuals in this room, when they're and on journeys and helping others, begin by personally experiencing the difficulties associated with hiring individuals with varying abilities. So could you share with all of us a little bit of your experience with your daughter's job search lead and how you became passionate about this line of work?
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you guys for coming today. It's a great full room. So I started my business in 2000, so we just had our 24-year anniversary. About 3 years in, Ron and I decided to adopt. We had 3 kids, and so we went halfway around the world and adopted our daughter. He was a willing participant. And so she came with a whole bag of things that you don't know when you hop on a plane and come through adoption, just like as people are born into this world. So we went through our school experience, and Anya had all kinds of hopes and dreams for her career through all the IEPs and, you know, all the things that you do through school and all. I never made an IEP I didn't cry through. So it didn't occur to me when she decided to go into the job force that I didn't think the tears would stop. She had things she wanted to do, places she wanted to go, and it was a lot of doors closed, and we used a lot of services. We tried to encourage her to think outside the box or lower her goals, and that became something where when she was probably 18 or 19, I thought, we can't be the only people going through this. And I'm an employer. It was like a wake-up moment. I'm thinking, wait, I can do something more and not just for Anya. So we decided to shift gears where we were at because we were going to make samples and I was going to send them to the workshop. I thought, you know what? No, we're going to become the workshop. We're going to hire people because I want our building to look like a city is supposed to look like. And I know when Anya interviews, she can't make eye contact. And I thought, well, we're going to hire some people who can't make eye contact, but they're going to be able to make samples. And we just changed everything probably 7 years ago, after she graduated from high school, because of that personal experience, because so many doors closed, or she would go into work and we could not adapt the workplace. So she would go in and want to work at a school or want to work at a preschool or get a job, and they wouldn't adapt the workplace, and she would have been a great employee. She's a great employee now, so she works with us at Jordan Essentials. Such a bright light, and has encouraged us to bring in other people. People talk about when they do their little surveys. I feel like I'm so lucky to work here. I love the work environment. It's the most cheerful place. It's very inclusive from people who wouldn't normally work in a work environment like that. Because we're making products that need precision and different things done. And so we just adapt things. And they're like, I didn't know what to say or what to do before, and now they do. And Anya just educates everybody. So she's a bit of a busybody. But our production is amazing. I know we'll ask other questions, but that's how we ended up there. I told her you can volunteer your hobbies. You're working at Jordan Essentials. We're ambassadors here. So she's just a treasure. But it helped us. All of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute. Other people are having this problem too. We can be a solution as an employer, even though we're a small business.
Thank you very much for that. Let's move on to Representative Stennett. In this room, there are many business owners and executives who are thinking about their role in this conversation. Will you please share how your experience as a business owner shed light of some of the needs we're facing today and how it's impacted your journey to state legislator?
Sure. So I started a business in 2014 as a speech pathologist providing speech therapy for children with disabilities, and grew that business to providing later occupational and physical therapies as well. But in that journey, I would have conversations with families who were experiencing a new diagnosis with their child and kind of going through what I would describe as a grieving process. They're trying to figure out what the next steps are going to be. They're trying to figure out what the outlook is for their child's life. And many of those conversations would yield a conversation around what is the potential for my child long term? What about when they're an adult? What's this going to look like for them? And so we had many conversations with many families, and over the years I had the blessing of watching these children grow, seeing them get through high school, and then having that same experience of what next, and hitting closed door after closed door and seeing those challenges play out in the community. And during that time, I had conversations with the chamber. I'm really grateful that the chamber's looking this direction to find solutions for employment, but also find solutions for these adults now that are looking for employment. As I look toward using my expertise and my skill set and my knowledge base to run for office and be a state legislator, I wanted to talk with groups that are interested in this topic, and Empower Abilities, Abilities First, the Arc of the Ozarks, other organizations in our community that help individuals try and find work opportunities. And one of the biggest challenges we found was actually with some legislation. And so I started working around that component and trying to just lift regulations that would help individuals with disabilities have more access and opportunities to employment. So that's a little bit of my story and kind of how I got to the place where I'm at, but I'm really passionate about making sure that people of all abilities have access to all sorts of work environments, and that those environments be a competitive, integrated environment like Nancy's talked about, where it's within our community. We want those individuals to feel welcomed within our community in any way that we can.
Thank you for that. Scott, as you are listening to the other panelists, you'll start to pick up that there's a trend here, that all of them have had some sort of experience where they became aware of the massive lack of resources when it comes to hiring. So what was it for you that exposed the lack of resources for individuals with varying abilities transitioning into the workplace?
Yeah, I think for me, it was probably when I took this role at Down Syndrome Group about 4.5 years ago. We don't know what we don't know. And at the time, I didn't know one person with Down syndrome. I didn't know anything about Down syndrome. I knew I wanted to help. I enjoy helping people and trying to help all of us have, I think, live a life that is worth living, So very quickly I started to learn, I think, about this huge gap that I didn't understand. My only experience really was probably like a lot of you in high school. There might have been a special education classroom. And at that time, it was down away from everybody else. And I didn't think anything about it because I didn't know. No one had ever taught me. So I'm very, very passionate about, as we get out in the community and even with our families, not to get too offended too quickly, because people don't know what they don't know. And it's up to us to raise awareness and educate, right? So for me, it's very simple. I mean, when I started learning about Down syndrome specifically and just our amazing kiddos, I like we use the term varying abilities, there doesn't need to be this huge gap and this huge fear of hiring individuals with varying abilities. Look, when I was a kid, I wanted to be in the NBA. You know, that didn't happen. But no one labeled me with a disability because I'm not able to beat Michael Jordan in one-on-one. You know, I mean, I can't play to that level, right? All of us in this room, if we were looking at Indeed today, thinking about a career change, there are jobs that we're not qualified for, and then there are jobs that we are. And so when I'm talking with employers, a lot of time we're not asking for a handout. We're not asking you to do anything, because that wouldn't be true inclusion. To your point, you know, earlier, like true inclusion is giving them a chance to show what they can do. They have abilities. All of us have varying abilities. So I would just say, I think I'm kind of passionate about the fact that don't close the door or just not consider an individual because they've been labeled a certain way, because none of the rest of us have to go through that. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why we do that to members of our community. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, yes. You know, it's a really good point, though, that you don't know what you don't know. And so I think that's why we're here today as well. But so let's go back to Nancy, but any of you can jump in as well if you'd like. So tell us about some of the misconceptions that employers have regarding hiring individuals with varying abilities, and describe what you've done to overcome those.
I think that the first one always happens in the interview process. If I'm going to look at 10 people in the interview process for a particular position, you might knock somebody out because they have a job coach with them. I've learned that that's like one of the coolest things ever. Why would you hire somebody that brings somebody with them that's going to make sure they do a great job? I don't know. It's awesome. Here's the quota. Let's make sure Sharon gets that done today, and it's done. Your own built-in supervisor. Anyway, so that was a misconception, I think, is that when somebody walks in the door, that, you know, when you're, you know, especially like with Anya, making eye contact, she, you know, has some sequential things you can ask her about yesterday and tomorrow. They're not there. But when she has something very present, so looking past that, looking at the very job itself and matching them. But I think one of the biggest hurdles is people's ability to want to work with an agency. And this, I know there's a lot of them in the room. And if we as employers can start to break those down and share our stories, it helps. Because my longest lasting, happiest, kindest, most generous, hardworking employees, 25% of our staff are people with different abilities. So Sharon gets a grid. Well, so when she first started, I'm like, oh gosh, I hope this works. And so I'm like, okay, we got to think of something. It was a coworker who said, if we put a grid on Sharon's table, she puts one on each, and then she goes like this, and she does a 1. And then she does it again, and she does a 2. I think it's been 7 years. She's the first person I hired. She's done, gosh, probably over 1 million of our samples that we send out today. But she needed that grid, and she has her own table and her own space. How many of you have employees who've worked for you for 7 years? I've seen the resumes, 6 months here, 2 months there. Great quality work. When we have our staff parties, you know, who shows up and plays all in? You know, our team is very, very, you know, plus my daughter's very chatty. She doesn't have a filter there. But, you know, so when we're working, we have to make allowances for that she's in a space that's like that, so that space can be, or we had one that can't have their back to the wall or needs their back to the wall. So just move the darn workspace. And they're still there 4 years later, doing a great job, you know, and having that opportunity to be in a different space. We have one with a physical disability. She told me just yesterday, it was great. She goes, I want to lift a weight. I bet I can lift more weight now. Since I started working here, I'm stronger. I just know I am. She goes, the muscles I get from picking up those bottles all day long and filling them on that machine. She goes, look at this arm. And I'm like, it looks pretty good. She goes, that's a benefit. It's like getting a free class at the gym by working here. I'm like, it kind of is. Grateful, perspective, hardworking team members, you know, and then the people who work alongside of them have, you know, discussions and conversations. So next time they go out in public and they see somebody who has a different ability, it becomes a community thing. That's probably my most intrinsic thing, that they can talk to somebody and they're like, oh, well, we're talking to a person like Anya, like Sharon, like Mason, like the people that they work with, because it's not such a scary thing anymore. So we adapt. So we call them adaptive workspaces. So when somebody starts working there, they might need it. Because I have one gal, she's really tall. Doesn't mean that she needs a different ability. She just needs a taller workspace. So we treat everybody like that. If you went into our workplace, you may or may not be able to tell who's who, and I don't really care. So, but you might just see somebody has this. We have clickers. And I tell you what, I like a calculator. I like a clicker whenever we're counting things. I get lost in my thoughts too. So I love some of the things that we've brought in, some brighter workplaces, put your back to the wall, doesn't like being by the door, has a clicker, has a workspace, a lot of joy, a lot of conversation, and it isn't for everybody. We've had people go, I just can't work here. I said, great, you'll find the place that works for you. This isn't it. This is a joyful, happy, hardworking place. Everybody still has to meet their quota. I think that's the other piece of it. Our production, before and after having people with different abilities, is better now. Turnover, training, people on their phones, or people who don't show up to work, or people who don't care. I tell you, my daughter's very happy to have a job. My people who work with us are very happy to have a job. They know how hard it is to get one. They're very, very grateful, and we're grateful to have them.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to another question for. Good, we're gonna have a lot of people being hired after this, right? So let's go on for another question for Representative Stennett. Describe some of the assumptions that employers tend to have regarding the types of jobs individuals can perform.
Sure. So I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different groups and kind of industry groups in our communities. And I often ask them when they're talking about workforce issues, this is a constant conversation in the legislature, a constant conversation with industry groups. And I will say, have you considered hiring an individual with a disability? Do you know what that looks like for your organization? Do you know what that looks like for individuals with disabilities? And often I get a response, and sadly I get a response, and they say, well, what could they even do? I know, right? But I had a great experience, and this goes to what Nancy was talking about. I had a great experience with a contractor group who someone said that in the group, and another person in the group said, oh, I know exactly what they can do because I hired an individual with a disability, and they're my best employee. They work hard, they know what the job is, and they love being at work. And it created this really organic conversation. So I think oftentimes when people are looking at, and it goes to what Scott was talking about too, they have varied abilities. They have differing abilities, just like each one of us has skill set, a knowledge base that is unique to us. They have a unique skill set and knowledge base that is unique to them. And we just have to find that and really tap into that. And so I think when we are putting out our applications or our job descriptions and all of those things, we have to put ourselves in a mindset to be able to accept that individual when they come to us and not put up our own barriers. You know, another example I think that's important to kind of, it doesn't go directly to the question, but it's important to talk about here is the fact that a lot of us are using technology to screen and find applicants for our jobs. Kansas City, the city of Kansas City did an initiative, an Employment First initiative, to really look at and address their application process and what that looked like for an individual with a disability. And they found out that when you go through their application process, there's a portion where you have to put your driver's license number. And if you don't have a driver's license number, you can't even get past that question on the application. So you've just weeded out an entire group of individuals for a job who may have been a great fit for your position, but because they don't have a driver's license, will never get to your desk. So I think as employers looking at those application processes, many of those things are built into programs that we're kind of signing up for, but they are moldable, they're buildable for your organization. So send one of your employees who has an eye for those type of things through your application process and see if you can pick up on any of those things that would weed out an individual that would maybe be a great applicant and a great person for your job. But, you know, there are these kind of pieces that are you're not able to get past. So I think that's a really important thing and a takeaway and a thing that you can do that's pretty simple that could maybe get you more applicants on your desk at work.
In addition to that, with you talking about some of those obstacles, can you talk to us about some of the work you advocated for that's going to help bridge some of these gaps?
Sure. So last year in the legislature, I filed a couple of bills. One was the Ticket to Work Health Assurance Program changes. Another one was our Employment First Act. So the Ticket to Work Health Assurance Program in the state of Missouri is a program built so that individuals with disabilities can maintain their health care benefits through the state while working. That's important because many people who don't have a disability don't realize the challenges and the needs that need to be met by their health care. A good example of that is a personal care assistant. So an individual who may have a physical or other disability where someone can come into their home and help them get up, get ready, and get to work. The cost of having somebody come and do that in your home, if your health insurance doesn't cover that, is very high. And so our state health plan does cover that for those individuals that need that service. So if they get a job and they're making, $1 more than they were before, and that cuts them off of that program, replacing that service need is such a high cost that they would say, you know what, don't give me the raise, don't give me the promotion. I'm not going to take that new job because I can't afford to lose this benefit. So we reviewed that at the state, we streamlined the income guidelines, and we raised that income guideline to a point where if you reach that income guideline, you should be able to replace that cost, hopefully. But we did a couple of other things too, things that people don't think about. We made a disregard for the spouse's income so that individuals with a disability aren't having to choose between getting married and keeping their health insurance, which is certainly an unfair thing to have to choose between. But some people were actually choosing to get divorced so that they could maintain these benefits. So really important. We also created a disregard for their retirement. So we want people to go out and get competitive integrated employment. We want them to be able to save to retire, just like anyone else would be able to do that. So those things are really important. Our state took an important step with an Employment First Act that was put in place by an executive order in 2019 by our governor, Mike Parson, which took a look at how the state was prioritizing competitive integrated employment for individuals with disabilities. The bill that I filed put some teeth in that and required state agencies to report on those things, but it's just a first step. It only deals with state-based agencies and how they handle employment of individuals with disabilities. The next step for those things is people like us to get involved at our city level. As I said, the city of Kansas City implemented an Employment First Act within their city. Springfield, I presented that to them. I think our city's getting involved with that is an important step as well. And then that will hopefully encourage more organizations to take a look at those options and put things in place in their everyday businesses also.
Thank you so much. Scott, we know that a lot of people in this room, that they really do want to get engaged in being part of the solution. So can you kind of talk us through the ways you've seen business owners and employees try to get this right? And don't be afraid to also tell us how they've kind of missed the mark on that as well.
Sure. I think just, again, getting through the interview process, allowing individuals to come in to that space, and then be creative. We make accommodations every day for employees. We let them pick their desk chair, or if they want to stand at a desk or sit at a desk. Like, we already do that. So let's just keep doing that, and let's do it on a more broad scale and get creative. I met with Silver Dollar City. Now, that's a large business, right? But they swung their arms so wide open, they were saying, hey, we'll not only hire individuals with Down syndrome, to come down and work, but we'll actually hire the person who might need to drive them along the same shift and put them either in a similar area, or if they don't need to be in a similar area, somewhere else. But they were just so interested, in helping and being involved. And again, there are lots of ways to do that. And I think just being open and being creative and not just being so stuck on the bottom line and, well, this is what I've got to have, and this, let's give them a chance. You know, give them a chance. I mean, we had a girl for a while was tending the salad bar at Incredible Pizza, okay? It doesn't matter that it's a salad bar. The point is, when she was tending that salad bar, it was the nicest salad bar in Springfield, you know? And all of her teenage counterparts, to your point, Nancy, are over in the corner looking at their phones or, you know, waiting till they can get out. She is meticulously taking care of that salad bar for hours because she was able to do it and able to do it well, and someone gave her a chance to do that. It doesn't have anything to do with salad. It has to do with the ability to stay focused on a task for a long period of time without being distracted. And again, she was doing it better than anybody. And so I just think being creative, employers being able to be creative, and again, not confine our accommodations to what we would call maybe quote unquote normal employees, whatever that means, right? Just be open to providing accommodations and exploring what that might look like. No one's forcing you to do anything. As an employer, you're still holding all the cards on who you hire, who you fire. And again, at the end of the day, if an individual can't do the job, no one's asking you to hire them just for the sake of hiring them. We're just saying give them a chance and see if they can do the job, and be open to having that conversation with your hiring managers, with your employees, to create, you know, if it means moving a desk across the room, you know, or setting up a system. Who knows, you might create a system, as Nancy was saying, that works better and is more efficient and increases productivity. And you would have never even gotten to that point if you didn't give them a chance. And so I think it's just, if we can start there, just exploring what that might look like and being open to the conversation, that's a huge step in the right direction, I think.
That's awesome. I agree with that. It can be the smallest things, you know, maybe a desk to put a computer on to hold it for you or things like that. So that can make a really big difference. So I want to do a lightning round right now and kind of go over maybe some just brief, or have you guys kind of briefly answer some questions. So yes, we will start with you. So describe the practical ways that employers can be inclusive and thoughtful, everything from language of job postings to collaborative relationships with some of the entities in this room.
I'm going to take a short caveat on the driver's license. I love the Oats bus. It shows up when nobody else shows up and shows up every time, and our attendance is better. So maybe I'd put on my job description, if you need transportation, I love you. Or, you know, if they, because they have reliable transportation. They don't get that Monday morning hangover and they don't show up. Sorry. I just kept thinking about it. How many times, like, the weather's a little wonky and people are like, I can't make it. I'm like, the Oats bus is here. I got 12 people and the rest of y'all can't come. Sorry, my question again, Christy. I love the Oats people.
Yes.
We have 3 shifts of them showing up.
Yeah, the practical ways that employers can be inclusive and thoughtful.
Practical ways. I think one of the things that we do when we onboard new employees, we brag about our team and that we do have an inclusive work environment, that it is adapted for people in our workplace. We just put it out there. I mean, everybody knows that's how Jordan Essentials runs. So that way, if somebody's going to come work for us and they got a problem with it, they're just going to leave early on. I'm just like, get out. So I think that we can make it, you know, very front and center. You know, it's almost like you get your little chamber sticker or whatever for the door. I wish we had something that just said, you know, this is a place where people can come. We are waitlisted, which is kind of fun too. That happened. I'm like, oh, we got a lot of people. You'll have to talk to Rob, our director of operations. But one of the things we do is when we have agencies contact us, we literally talk to them about our openings. We talk to them about what positions we have open. We screen and tell them, you know, what kind of work environment it is. We actually describe things as to what we have. And we promote from within. We've had people who start out, you know, maybe in samples, they moved up to using a piece of equipment. And there's a sense of pride with that. So there's, everybody gets their reviews done. But I think that is part of it, is treating your workspace as holistically. We don't have a division. We don't have certain people. This is Jordan Essentials. This is how we do business. This is how we make products. And I think it's that example when I do talk to other business owners. But I think other people can be inclusive. But at the same token, why not just change your culture? Why not just become who you want to be? I think in the beginning it felt a little bumpy, but I can't imagine it any other way now. So it just becomes a part of when people start to work with us, when they start to come in. It is just a part of our story. It should be how our cities are. It should be how our schools are. My daughter had to go to a trailer. We couldn't find the darn trailer in high school. I'm like, where's this classroom? In Nixa, they're like, oh, you had to go through the janitor's closet out to this trailer for the special ed classroom. I'm like, but you guys are behind bulletproof glass, you're locked inside, but she's in a trailer out back. They don't do that anymore. It's back in the day, and trust me, I wasn't that gracious mother. But that's how our school, sorry, I won't talk anymore, but it's my husband's up here going, I was not gracious, and I shouldn't have been, because you could just walk in there anytime. But our cities, our towns, and I've learned Anya's been such a blessing to her 3 brothers, to us, to our family. We adopted her and a whole new way of life, and I think businesses should do that too.
Absolutely. Do not send your kids in the janitor's closet.
Yeah. Go through the janitor's closet, out to a trailer in the parking lot.
Yes.
Don't get them started.
Representative Stennett, would you like to comment on that question as well?
I would say it's okay if you're nervous. As a business owner, as an employer, it's okay if you're unsure. Reach out to the agencies in our community that do work that in this space. They would be happy to take you to some employers that do a great job at this and show you how it can work. But if you've never done it before, it would be strange if you were like, yes, I know exactly what to do. So don't feel like you have to know exactly every right step from day one. I think these organizations in our community would be happy to have some collaborative conversations with you about how it can look, what it can look like, how it can work. So just don't be scared to ask for help and put yourself out there a little bit.
Scott, you have anything to add to that as well?
Yeah, we just launched a few months ago the Upside Down Mercantile on C Street. We're up to 9 brands that are ran by adults with Down syndrome and their families. And one of the things we kind of have on the window there is this concept that, that in 1981, the average life expectancy for an individual with Down syndrome was 25. Today it's 60. So 1981 wasn't that long ago. I am old enough to remember it, okay? The average life expectancy was 25. Today it's 60. Now, some of that is medical, right? There's medical advances and things, I get it. But, you said something. You said school doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
And they only don't do that anymore because somebody decided to say something. And I challenge people, if we were treated a lot like our families that have loved ones with Down syndrome were treated, where I've got a mom of a son with Down syndrome, he's 25, and she was literally told, send him away to a home, he'll never amount to anything, and go live your life. If all of us in this room were sent away to a home to sit in a room and stare at a wall, we would die at 25. Because there's no hope in that.
Sure.
And so it takes people stepping up and not just talking about it, but actually saying, you know what, and to your point, Melanie, I don't know what this looks like for my company or to my business, but I'm gonna try to figure this out. I'm gonna try to see what role we can play and our company can play in this conversation. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to leave here saying, I've got a plan. If you'll just leave here and say, you know what, I think there's something we could do, and I'm gonna figure out what that is, that's a win. That's a huge win. And that's, I think, my thoughts on just get in the game, Get in the game and see what you can do to make a difference and kind of bringing that hope and bringing that change. And let's see what can happen, because, I've got one brand it blows my mind, and I have to share this because it's amazing to watch these brands in the store start to grow. And now maybe they're not just in our store, but they're introducing their brands into other stores, and they're trying to grow their business. They're small business owners at its core, and they're doing it. And by the way, this isn't just some kind of show thing where they're just, the poster child and the family's doing. No, they're doing it. They're either creating it by hand or they are wholesaling, and they're picking out the designs or what they're doing, and they're reselling it, and they're being successful in it, and they're making a little extra spending money. They're able to come in and work in the store and talk to customers that come in and tag items, and it's phenomenal. And I'll be honest, 5 years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have been like a lot of people because I didn't know what I didn't know, and I'd be like, oh, I don't know if they could do that. Just being honest, I don't know, but having been introduced and kind of into that space, they're so capable of more than we give them credit for if we'll just give them a chance. And I think that's all of us, kind of what we're all kind of trying to say is if just try to figure out a way to engage and give them a chance.
So how do you think with this conversation that could actually impact our workforce in the region?
Say that again. So
The conversation that we're discussing here, what is the potential of that being able to help in our region?
I think it changes not only, look, we're passionate, we're gonna advocate, and the families that we represent are gonna advocate for their kids. And they're gonna find opportunities, whether you guys engage or not, they're gonna find opportunities and create opportunities for their kids. But I can't imagine what it could look like if a community came together and we really were respectful and cognizant of our differences, and we didn't draw lines in the sand. We were just kind of like, hey, we're all here trying to do the same thing. Let's just figure this out together, and let's give everybody a chance to do it. And again, allow people to work in a space that they're capable of working in, and make accommodations. We already do it. It's not some big scary thing just because someone has a different ability than we do. Explore that, and I get it. It's not always gonna work in every single setting at every job. That no one's asking for that. We're just asking to explore that. And I think it could, as far as a region, I think it could make a monumental difference in just society in general, in our kindness to each other and our acceptance of each other. We've gotten away from that, I think. And I think we could get back to that in the workplace. So.
Thank you, yeah, I love that. Melanie, you have anything to add to that?
I think it could put Springfield and our region on the map in a way that no one really can comprehend or understand. If our community is seen and viewed as a place where individuals with varying abilities have opportunity, I think you'll see growth in our economy. I think you'll see growth in our industries in a way that we just really can't comprehend. You heard Nancy talk about how it's changed the culture and the environment. And what if, as a community, it changed the culture and the environment? And I think that's exactly what Scott's talking about. It is a monumental shift in what we're thinking and doing right now. I think that if you got a group of business owners, from every industry in a room, it would feel maybe worrisome, but I think when you put it in place, it will become something that people will want to strive for and other communities would be jealous of.
Nancy, do you have anything to add?
I do think that that's the biggest part is the culture and what the impact, but it does just start with one. My daughter was not our first employee. It was that idea that we were going to go to the workshop, and we hired Sharon. And not every person we've hired's worked out. And that's always the hardest part, is to say, this isn't going to work out, you can't do the job, because we do expect everybody to do the job. So we're really clear, this is the job, this is the quota that you have to hit that day, and we'll do everything we can to get you there, but this may not be it. just like every other employee. I don't know how many of you all have hired every person, they've all stayed. And that's also a life experience that people have to go through that they deserve to go through, you know, to learn and to grow. So Ron and I, raising our kids, he always says, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you go to college, you should be a contributing member of society. And Anya heard that her whole life. She is engaged, it's freaking us out a little bit, to a young man who has autism who works at Amazon, works 410s. He's thriving in that environment. We don't know how they're going to thrive in marriage. That's a long way off. But anyway, so it's a whole, yeah, no, I don't know that Ron and I can talk more. It just happened on Valentine's Day. It's a whole nother thing. But people, everybody wants to be a part of life. Nobody wants to be locked away. And so next time you have an opportunity to open a door and say, come on in some capacity. Maybe it's an internship, maybe it's volunteering, maybe it's a small piece of the puzzle. I promise you, you'll get a lot more out of it than they will.
Thank you very much. You know, as an individual in this line of work that I do, I deal with a lot of this every day. And so, you know, some of the things that the takeaway on this is, you know, get them in there and take a chance. You know, the longevity of someone that stays at a company or a job can be amazing. You know, like we said, there's a lot of turnover. I, even myself know, I did like 30 interviews before someone gave me a chance because they would look at the disability first. So it's really important not to judge that by what you see or what you do, because once you get in there, you know, they are committed workers. They're gonna, you know, you give them a task, it's gonna be done. And a lot of times I think, just like anybody else, there's a different perspective that's brought in that maybe that untapped talent that you just weren't aware of. And so I'm just thrilled that everyone's here today and is willing to collaborate in our community and realize how important this topic really is. And so I do hope that this is the beginning of a significant conversation for everybody and that it leads to the change that we want to see in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.